I'm Eitaro Fukamachi. Thank you for giving me time to talk today. I am a common Lisp programmer, and my main interest is writing web applications in common Lisp. As a web developer, you may have come across some of my open source libraries that are specifically related to web. If you're interested in this field, my products could interest you somehow. I picked up some of my products. I introduced Woo at ELS conference 9 years ago, so some people here may remember it. It is still the fastest HTTP server written in Common Lisp. Another library I'd like to mention is Dexadol, a solvent. If anyone is still using Drachma, you may want to look at it. It's much better. QuickDocs is a web service that can be used to search Common Lisp libraries. My job, when I was young, I was writing Common Lisp libraries for fun. And luckily, a few years later, I got a Common Lisp job. Since then, I've worked with Common Lisp for about 10 years. I will not starve to death tomorrow, but I'm open to any job opportunity since I'm not very interested in my current job. If you know any Common Lisp jobs that may suit me, please let me know later. So, getting into today's topic. Let's start with a question. Have you ever had these conversations while in Common Lisp development with your colleagues, with your application's users, or whoever? A typical conversation would be like, someone says, your software doesn't work. And I say, what version of QuickLisp disk do you have? Someone says a certain version, and it's always a bit old. Then I answer, it's too old. Update your QuickLisp disk. Another conversation. Someone says, I downloaded the latest version of your software from GitHub, but it doesn't work. I say, what is the error saying? And well, someone says, system not found. I answer, the new dependency is not in QuickLisp yet. Download it manually. Well, I have had a lot of conversations like this. I often get such issues on GitHub almost every month, which are time-consuming. It's because QuickLisp doesn't have a proper dependency management that other equivalents for other languages have. Let me explain. There are two things missing in QuickLisp. The first one is that there is no function to install libraries from other than its distribution. Even if a newer version is available in the upstream Git repository, there are no methods to install it via QuickLisp. Since QuickLisp disk updates are not frequent, such demand rises quite often. QuickLisp permits loading any projects in the local projects directory. However, it leads to the second problem. The second one is it's not easy to reproduce the same set of libraries. Very few projects run in a single environment. A project developed by multiple developers has to run on all collaborators' machines. Web applications have a production environment where the application will finally be deployed. In the case of distributed software, it must run on more than one machine. Same with CI environments. In other words, this problem can occur in any kind of common Lisp project, not only in web development. You need to manage those libraries by yourself, like where to download, where to place, which version is installed, and so on. Is there any solution? Someone would say Git submodules. I will answer. Fine, if you do these following steps. Firstly, you have to list all dependencies, including dependencies of dependencies. If not, you can't be sure your application runs with the same versions of libraries. Am I concerned too much? Maybe. But it's easy to confirm. Imagine whether your application runs with the quickest disk released 3 years ago. You will probably get a lot of errors because of compatibility problems. It explains a lot that there's a compatibility problem even with common Lisp, although its specification hasn't been changed for a long time. Secondly, you need to find their repository URLs. You can use Qlot for this, but doing it is not so fascinating. Finally, you add them as Git submodules. You need to do these boring steps when dependencies are changed. The bad news is it's only the partial solution. It cannot isolate environments. Let me explain about what isolation means here. This is a picture of a developer who has two projects in the same machine, Project A and Project B. They have different code base, but they share the same quick Lisp and common Lisp directory to load external libraries. It causes trouble when those projects require a different version of the same library. For example, Project A requires Alexandria version 1, while Project B requires V2. There's no official way to achieve it. So, summarizing advantages and disadvantages of Git submodules. The advantage is not necessary to introduce a new tool. Of course, it's important, especially in collaborative development, since it can avoid any troubles with it. The disadvantages are here. It's hard to maintain dependencies with Git submodules, and it doesn't isolate environments per project, as I mentioned. After all, you need to introduce a new project-specific script to do it correctly, and it spoils the only advantage. So, I want to introduce here is Qlot. Qlot can be another solution for better dependency management. Qlot is a tool to set up QuickLisp. It installs QuickLisp for each project and adds other external libraries. It remembers the version of installed libraries, and it also enables to reproduce the same set of libraries on other machines easily. Of course, it isolates environments for each project, and additionally, it has HTTPS support. Here's a picture of how multiple projects are managed with Qlot. Project A and Project B have their dedicated QuickLisp. Since they don't share the same directory to load dependencies, each project can have different versions of Alexandria. So in the beginning, what you need to do when you start using Qlot is Qlot init. It creates files to manage dependencies at the project root. I will explain it later. After that, run Qlot install, and you will see the local QuickLisp at .qlot directory. That's it. Qlot exec is the command to use the project local QuickLisp. It takes commands to run a new Lisp process. In this example, spcl is the following command. After running a REPL, you can see that QuickLisp is loaded from the project root. Qlot exec adds appropriate arguments for using the project local QuickLisp. It supports popular Lisp implementations: SBCL, ECL, ABCL, CLisp, Clasp, and Allegro Common Lisp. Sorry for LispWorks, guys, but don't worry. Even when your Lisp isn't supported, just load a setup file explicitly instead. This is an example of using it without the Qlot command. I know most common Lispers use Emacs and Slime to run REPL. This is an Emacs Lisp code to use Qlot with Slime. After adding this and reloading configurations, you can now invoke a new REPL with the project local QuickLisp with these key sequences. It's already useful as a local QuickLisp installer, but it's not only for that. It's common demand to add an external library that is not in QuickLisp yet, or the necessity of a different version of it. Qlot add is a command that introduces new dependencies. If no version is specified, it will be installed from the latest dist. If specified, it will be installed from the specific version of dist. Since QuickLisp dist update is not frequent, it is often the case that we want to install from upstream repository. It's done only by adding upstream option. Qlot finds the repository URL that QuickLisp refers to and adds it to the project local QuickLisp. Here's another example for adding from a Git repository. This would be useful if you have your own fork repository. For dependencies hosted on GitHub, you can use the well-known style as GitHub's username/repository name. If it's not on GitHub, you can specify the repository URL. They also have command line options for branches, tags, and commit hash. How do they work? They are managed in files named qlfile and qlfile.log. Here's the content of those files that Qlot init command creates at the project root. These files are similar, but for different purposes. qlfile is used to keep what the user wants to install. On the other hand, qlfile.log has more detailed information that is required to reproduce all dependencies in a different environment. In this example, it contains a repository URL and the commit reference. Regarding these files, don't forget to add them because they are required to reproduce the same set of dependencies. To install dependencies to another machine, just run Qlot install. You can take this Qlot install command as the one to apply changes to the project local quick list. The last thing you must know is Qlot update, which is the command for updating a project to the latest version. It overrides qlfile.log, so don't forget to push the changes for other users. If you are the user who gets changes done by others, you need to run Qlot install to apply the changes, as I mentioned before. So summarizing the usage, you don't need to remember all of them. Qlot help command shows all subcommands anytime. You might feel confused, but once you get the idea, you will find it useful like Git. So the next topic is internal. My design principle is good design is invisible. So I'm not the person who wants to talk a lot about my efforts probably, but I will talk in case you may be interested. At first glance, most people think it only downloads all dependencies to the same directory and allows them to be loaded. But it's not so simple. It makes any common list projects into a quick list dist. Running ql all dist to see it, and there's a dist named mito. Quick list dist requires metadata files. Important ones are two of them. Releases.txt contains a list of all systems in the dist. For example, a project Mito has systems named Mito, Mito-text, Mito-migration, and others. Systems.txt contains a list of their dependencies. For example, Mito requires DBI, dissect, local time, and others. Determining this information is tricky. Someone may say it can be done by calling an SDF function, but it's not. Qlot cannot use SDF functionalities because SDF runs the same Lisp image, run in the same Lisp image as the user's applications. When SDF find system is called, SDF loads its SD file. SD files can contain any Lisp code. I had seen some projects calling SDF load system or QL quick load in those SD files. CFFI is the typical library in this case and is often loaded before dev system to preload external C libraries in SD files. Then the problem is, where should the library be loaded from? Since Qlot is used to isolate environments for each project, the project local quicklist is ideal. However, it is not available at this time because it is in the middle of the process of being prepared. To set up a project local quicklist, need to get a list of dependencies, and it requires a project local quicklist. It's a circular dependency. Even if Qlot ignores the few projects that load external libraries in SD files, dev system depends on also has the same problem. To avoid this, Qlot uses code working forms in SD files. There's the benefit to taking this approach. You can use quicklist functionalities even for dependencies installed by Qlot. These are called to list all systems in Mito. This example. It has 5 systems, and the second call is for getting a list of dependencies of Mito. ASDF provides similar functions, but quicklist ones are much faster because they calculate dependencies based on pre-generated metadata. For the last thing, I'm talking about its future. Working with the REPL is one of the best parts of quicklist. It allows users to install libraries without leaving the REPL. On the other hand, Qlot provides the command line interface as the primary one, and its REPL interface is still experimental. Some messages may look strange in the REPL, and when an error occurs, the reason for the error will be shown in the standard error instead of the commonless debugger. This design approach is because of similar difficulties to what I just explained. Since SDF and QuickLisp run on the same process, they cannot have external dependencies to avoid conflict with the user's application. Contrary to QuickLisp, Qlot needs external libraries to achieve some features like HTTPS support. So it runs a different process for some complicated tasks that require libraries. It makes it difficult to implement its REPL interface. but I'm currently working on improving its experience. It will hopefully be out soon. That's it.
No questions, please.
Yeah, I have two questions. So you mentioned that you're using different quick list distributions to isolate packages from one another. When assuming that you have two different libraries which have a compatible set of dependencies, so it should maybe be possible to reuse the same quick list dist for different projects. So do you do something like that, or do you just don't care and create a different quick list dist every time?
Yeah, Qlot installs the different quick list client for each project, so they don't share any files.
Okay.
Project.
And second, very quick question: how about getting inspiration from NixOS, which is a quite elegant and purely functional package management system?
Oh, I've never looked at it, so I will.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
Marco, we need all the right streams, vibrations going down all the right pipes.
So it's a similar question. First of all, I understand that what you're trying to do is to have the equivalent of Python virtual environments or my recent favorite one, which is Julia environments. And especially the Julia package manager seems to do a lot of the things that you are doing. But from my understanding, also following up on Didier's question, Julia Package Manager allows you to download, to keep one single, to download, not to replicate too much of the overall environment. So have you looked into those by any chances? So if the first question is, am I right that you are trying to replicate what you would do with virtual env? And the second question is, have you looked into the Julia Package Manager?
Oh, I think I don't get the question correctly. Yeah, well, the first product I get ideas is Ruby's bundler. Yeah, the most of subcommands are almost from the bundler. I don't think Ruby is not so popular other countries than Japan, but
So Ruby bundles. I have one. Are you familiar with this Eric Timmons CLPM, CLPI
yes,
efforts?
the comparison.
Yeah, if you.
Yeah, well, it's it it imported some features from Qlot, and now those features are almost the same. So you can use CLPM for this kind for solving this kind of problem, but the approach is different. He took approach like develop from scratch, and he didn't use a quick list and wanted to replace it. So, yeah. So if
you're dovetailing with quick list,
right? So if you are using a quick list now, so you can easily get into Qlot.
Got it. Thanks. Next.
Thank you. Is it possible to add the sources from Ultralisp
I'm sorry.
So is it possible to add sources from ultralisp?
Ultralisp. Oh, yes, it's supported. Yeah. Yeah. It can add the quick lisp disk other than offshore one to by Qlot add command. I didn't mention that.
Is there a workflow if I want to patch my dependencies and distribute it with my content?
I'm sorry.
Like if I have my program and it has like a dependency and I just want to patch it and then distribute the patched version of the dependency with my program.
How? Well, you mean the modify the functions?
Yes.
Well, Qlot doesn't care about when running your application, so it works like without Qlot. Well, doesn't care about after Qlot exec, so it should work.
I think my question is more like, can I specify in the lock file that I want like a custom version of a dependency that like my fork or something like that?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, I didn't mention that, but it has branch option, house option, or of course you can set git hash reference.
Good. I think it's time for our next speaker. Thank you very much. Very well.